What's up, Scoop Podcast? I'm your host, Erica Kroopin, and on today's episode, I have a special guest, and I know you guys love guests, and so do I. I hate listening to myself talk all day. I have Amanda. Welcome, Amanda. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is a conversation I've been wanting to have for a very, very long time. I have been following your and Justin's journey literally since I think I've pretty much started this business. I found you guys pretty early on in the Pooper Scooper group that I don't are we not allowed to talk about it? I don't know if we're allowed to talk about it still. But I'd been following you guys and you guys were just such an inspiration. You had the new business, you had a beautiful family, and at that time, it was like during COVID, and you did literally like the best pregnancy announcement that I had ever seen in my entire life. And I was like, these people are so great. So thank you.
Yeah, there's actually several that we've done. I think that's the one thing I'm gonna miss about having more children, but those were the fun times to announce them.
No, those were so good. So, how about you give the listeners, for the listeners that don't exactly know who you are, can you just give a little bit of a highlight reel about yourself and what you're about?
Yeah, I am Justin's wife, co-owner of Department of Doody. I'm a stay-at-home mom to 5 children that I homeschool, so that's basically my that's what I do. That's the job in and of itself. So,
Absolutely. And like from the outside, like looking in, obviously we only see highlight reels online, but you guys have a flourishing business. You guys have, it seems, a beautiful marriage, beautiful children, a beautiful home. And it's like when I look at you, I'm like, she's just got it going on. How is she doing it all? And I'm like looking around at my house and it's messy. My kids are fighting, and I'm like, oh, I need to do my
um,
laundry.
yeah, it's funny because
Um,
that's exactly how my house is right now. So,
We're really just trying to like make it through the days, and I think it's really important for us to have these type of conversations because in the day and age of when we are spending so much time on social media, we only see the highlight reel. So it's nice to give that like behind the scenes glimpse into like what it's actually like so other women can listen to this and be like, I'm not alone. Some days are hard and some days I do feel like giving up and like packing my bags and disappearing for a little bit. But the season will pass and we just have to keep moving.
yes, exactly. And that's part of my thing is like, I dislike social media for that thing because it's just the constant comparing yourself. And I've had so many people say, you're so patient. Like, I don't know how you do it. Like, you have 5 children, everything's perfect. And I'm like, no, like, nothing's perfect. I have 3 baskets of laundry that I still have to put away. There's toys everywhere. My kids are there's times that like they're on their screens for hours at a time because like I'm just trying to balance it all, and there are some days that are way harder than others and some days that are amazing. Like it's life, and you just go with it. You have to. What choice do you have?
Exactly. You do. You have to and make the best of it. And that's something that we're learning right now because my husband had children pretty young when he was like, I think he was 18. Like his birthday's early, but him and his ex-wife had kids very, very young. And the oldest is going to be 19. Like we're talking about going over to Canada to have like a Canadian birthday party. And the twins are 17, getting ready to be 18. And we're 37, and both of us are kind of looking at each other and we're like, this is weird. Like, what do we do with our time? I totally understand why couples have kids, like another kid later on in life. And then there's that huge gap between them. Because Josh was like, I would be such a better dad. Like, that's how he feels. He'd
Mhm.
have more patience, he'd have more time, like all of the things. He's looking at me and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I can do that right now. I feel kind of old to have a kid right now.
You're not
Let's get a
old.
dog.
Let's
That's
get it.
how but That's how I feel. So, all right,
Dog.
well, let's get into you. Before we hop into it, you did say that you're a stay-at-home mom, but you are co-owner of the business. So
Mhm.
I do want to know, like, what is your role in Department of Duty?
Well, I kind of, since hopefully Mike won't get me for this, but since I am like admin of Scoop Club, I I watch there, and I also like kind of see what everybody else is doing, and I'm mainly the female side of implementing organization and like just the empathetic, like how we handle the employees, because and I say the female side is because men just like they like there's certain things that they just don't have the ability to do. And so as far as like handling certain situations, and so Justin will sometimes come to me to see that side of it, and he's like, well, how would you approach this or whatever? And or I'll just like I have a knack for organization, like it's my favorite thing. And so he'll come to me with ideas and like how do we organize this, how do we get this working smoothly. And so I usually do that part of it, or I need to vent counselor when Justin needs to vent about something, and so I'm his support there.
That is so huge, and I didn't really understand um, how important that was until recently when my husband he decided he was going to quit his job and start his own business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think I had just made it look so easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't really, like, venting to him too much. I kinda kept him out. Like, he would come in and help me and stuff, but I wasn't, like, really sharing the day-to-day with him and the stress and everything that was going on. Yeah, I just dealt with alcohol. This was, like, when I was drinking, and then also with therapy. And so when he decided that he wanted to do his own thing, like, the stress, everything just it was too much. Like, he made an abrupt decision. He since then he still has his business, but he did go back to working his, like, full-time job while starting to build this business. But during that time, we actually got so much closer than we had been in quite a long time, and he was asking me a lot of questions about the business and telling me things. He's like, "Did you go through this?" I'm like, "Yeah. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I felt that. Yeah, I felt like I wanted to just crawl up in a ball and not do anything or not know what to do." And he's like, "I had no idea, Erica. Like, you should share this stuff with me." And so now I've actually been like opening up to him. And it is crazy what that dynamic is when you have a husband and a wife that can communicate with each other and bounce ideas off of one another. What it does not only for the business, but like for the marriage.
That was one thing that we Jess and I still struggle with communication, because there's time. I mean, I'm dealing with 5 children all day. I'm like, there's times that I'm like, I'm done. I don't want to talk. I don't want to, and that can be hard because it is super important, especially for the marriage, because if he's not communicating to me that he's having a hard time with employees or whatever, then I'm getting upset at him because I'm like, well, you should be coming home to help. And so from the beginning, I knew that with him building the business, it was going to be harder for me being a stay-at-home mom with the kids. And so I took on that heavy load, knowing the end goal, because he expressed the end goal with me. He always does. And so we kind of came to the agreement that like when he was working in the field, that was his full-time job, and while he wasn't home, the stuff at home would be my full-time job. And then when he came home, we'd now both be in part-time duty and working together. Even though I was still continuing to do what I was doing all day, it wasn't like the full load of what I was doing. So, but that was the communication that we had going into this, is like I knew I was going to take on the hard load for the end goal. So, and we've made it to one of those goals. So, and that was getting him home.
I love that you guys were able to have that conversation and he was able to express to you this is what the end goal was and you guys were able to like move forward with that. Because I do talk to a lot of entrepreneurs where they like with men for instance, they're like my wife isn't supportive or my girlfriend isn't supportive of this, they don't believe in this business, they don't think it's going to turn into anything, and so
Mhm.
they're like fighting with that. um, when you guys first got started and he's like, hey Amanda, I'm gonna start a pooper scooper business, what do you think about it? Like what were you thinking? Were you like what's happening right now?
I did not grow up in the entrepreneurial brain whatsoever. It was just not something that I knew, and um, I always knew that he wanted to be his own boss. He's always talked about it, but and so we had our first. I was 18. I turned 19 a week later after he was born. So like 6 months out of high school, I like, but preface, Justin and I have been like we met when I was 13. So, but
I love that.
he always talked about that, and so when the pooper scooper business was not his first. I want to try this. He's done several of them. There were times that I rolled my eyes and I was like, I wanted to support what he wanted because he always wanted it for our family. Like he wanted to do things for his family. And I mean, he worked 3 jobs at one point just so I could stay home because he wanted, well, we both really wanted like to be able to pour into our kids, and we couldn't do that if I wasn't home. So um, when he came to it, the idea, I was actually we had I think 3 dogs at the time. I was actually in the backyard using a Walmart bag, picking up dog poop to clean the yard for the kids. He was just like, I bet somebody would pay to do that. And we didn't know that there was other businesses around. And I was like, well, if I don't have to do it anymore, I'll be fine. So, um, and so he put a listing on Craigslist and I was like, well, I'll be here for you. I honestly didn't think it would get to what it is. Like it still amazes me that when friends text me and they're like, "We saw a duty truck and blah blah blah," and so yeah, it it's crazy.
What size is the company now, if you don't mind me asking?
Size as in like how many employees or
Yeah, like employees or accounts or whatever you feel comfortable sharing, just to,
there.
so people that are listening have context.
Yeah, we have 6 or 7 employees. I know for sure six, might be seven, and a little over 900 customers.
That's a big business. That really is. So, like throughout the journey and through like the ups and downs, especially with you being a stay-at-home mom, was there times where you were like nervous, like, oh, I don't like this business. Like, what if it doesn't work out? Like, what are we gonna do? Like, what was that mindset like?
So when he first started, our third child she she had just been born not long. Um, I guess it was in the middle of that, me being pregnant with her. We had just started going to church. Justin was like, "I want to start going." Because I grew up in church or sort of, and so I was surprised when he was like, I want to start going to church because we had several friends like continue to invite us. And I was like, okay, like, men lead the family. And so I was like, okay, let's go. And I was pregnant with her. I had a high risk pregnancy with her. So it was like God laid all of those things out. And her pregnancy is my testimony. And so it was around then that it was still scary for me, but I had that faith that like God was going to do this for him because he's the one that led him to church. I got him to go, and honestly, it's still scary for me because I mean, we have 5 children to support. So if we lose customers, I'm like, well, there goes like the part of our paycheck or part of, our employees' paychecks. And we worry about them too, because they have families that they have to support. And so it's still scary. I feel like it's always going to be scary because it's, I mean, I know there's always dogs and they're always, I mean, they're always dropping things that have to be picked up, but it's still just with the economy, like I still worry about it. It's still scary.
No, it is. And I'm glad that you started talking about the faith because this is kind of a point that I wanted to pivot to because which we've talked about this. So last year around October, that's when I made my way to church and I had which I don't think I've shared my testimony yet because it was like a wild story.
Mhm.
Eventually I will. But prior to that, I was in Texas. Was it no, Tennessee. And I seen this woman there and I just like seen her and I was like, I need to go talk to her. And I was in mid conversation with my husband and I just like walked away from him and just beelined and I started talking to the woman that was I thought she was like selling shoes. And I was like, "Oh, I own a dog waste removal business." And she's like, "Me too." And so I started asking her questions and she's like, "Wait a minute. Let me you talk to my husband. He knows more about this." So this guy comes around the corner and we shake hands. I was like, "Hi, my name's Erica." And the guy goes, "I know who you are, Erica. I'm Adam from the Poop Scoop group." And I like glitched. I was like trying to figure out like what was going on and then I realized and so it's Adam and Lindsay. I love her so much, like, so much. Her and I talk every single day, and so then we started developing this relationship, and, she prayed with me for the first time, like, I didn't even know how to pray, she prayed over me, we had some very, like, in-depth conversations, and at this time, I was still very new to church, and then her and I started talking about you, and then you invited me to what is it? What's the women's conference?
It's Pink Impact.
Pink Impact, and I really, really wanna go, and I'm super excited about that, because, like, in my, like, day-to-day life, I at the time, I didn't really have anybody around me that was, like, going to church, trying to strengthen their faith, and just live a better life, and so I've been kinda, like, living vicariously through you guys online, just seeing how, like, you present yourself and it's just been really, really cool, and so I know you have an awesome testimony story, and I wanted to know, like, would you be willing to share a little bit about that?
So, pregnant with our third child, like I said, she was a high risk pregnancy. I had what it's called ICP. The bile acids in the liver or gallbladder build up, and it's a risk to the baby. Like 15% stillbirth for the baby if it's not treated properly. So that was really hard for me, but to handle because my first two they were normal, they whatever, and so we had been starting to go to like we had already been in church whenever I found out that I was pregnant with her. And so I didn't have the relationship with the Lord that I do now, but I still had this pull that we were going to be okay. And we got to her birth with that condition. You have to be induced no later than 37 weeks because the stillbirth rate raises after that. I had that with the last 3 kids. And so we go into the delivery room and I'm terrified because like I'm just thinking, is she going to come out alive? Is she going to come out alive? Is she going to be okay? And I'm going to try not to cry. But she, so I felt a pull to turn on worship music, and I turned on worship music while I was being induced, while I was in labor, and there were so many songs playing that could have played before then. I didn't have a special list put together. I just turned it on the Amazon Alexa music and I was just listening to it and, just trying to like I was trying to find the Lord to, for him to tell me that I was going to be okay, that we were going to be okay. And I wasn't hearing him. I didn't think I was hearing him. And so the nurse comes in and there's another song that comes on, and she checks me and she says, okay, it's time to push. And like my Amazon Alexa app messed up. And I was like, you have to turn that back on. You have to turn it back on. So he turns it, Justin turns it back on. And I don't know if you've ever heard it before, but the song by Carrie Job, I'm Not Alone, comes on. In that moment, I knew that I wasn't, that he was there for me. And she came out healthy. She didn't have to go to NICU. She didn't, nothing. And so it was in that, from then on, I've like my faith and my like knowing that I'm not alone when I'm struggling as a mom or whatever. If I just turn to him, that he's going to be there for me. And so that is the bigger part of my testimony. But and the business just grew after that because I put my faith really in the Lord, but I also like used that as my guide to put my faith in Justin because he was he's the leader of our family, as you know, as the Bible says, you know, men lead the family, lead them to God, and then lead them in general. And so I put my faith that I had from then on into Justin, that I knew we would be okay, even though it's still scary.
Girl, you're gonna make me cry. Oh, hold
I
on.
know.
I'm collecting my thoughts over here. Um, so when you aren't a believer and you're not walking with the Lord, it's like it's a scary place.
Mm-hmm.
It's anything that can go wrong, I feel like can go wrong. But when for personally me, when I shifted over, and then I was starting to have a relationship with the Lord and to be able to put faith in Him, like I don't trust myself. Like I always doubt myself, but it's like there's a sense of calmness, and it's like I do trust Him. And from what I've noticed looking at other folks that are married that have like a different dynamic than my husband and I have, the couples that when the wives support the husbands and they have faith in the husbands, it seems like the marriages do so much better and things are thriving. And my marriage was all off kilter because I grew up in an abusive household, and I told myself that I was never going to be in a position to where like a man could control me. I'm going to lead myself. And that caused a lot of issues in my marriage because my husband's like, I can't do anything for you. I can't help you. Like you won't allow me. And I've since then tried to like allow him to lead and put confidence in him because he can lead. You know, it might be a little slower than I would like because I'm like a mover and groover. And since that has happened, like I've had faith in the Lord and I've had faith in my husband, like our marriage is doing better. We're both doing better. And we're still like new, like we're still trying to figure it out. Um, but I can see the shift and I can see the change. And so I really appreciate you, like you sharing that testimony with us to like this really happens. Like the Lord will really bless you if you
Mm-hmm.
allow him, and your husbands will do a good job if you allow them to.
Yeah, it's still hard. Like I didn't. It's still hard for me to allow that because of the like I grew up. My mom was she was a single mom multiple times, and so like I grew up having to watch her do for herself, and so I still have the mindset of that at times because I'm like, you know, I mean, that's all I knew. I didn't see a healthy marriage. I didn't see all of those things. So, Jess and I both, you know, we wanted that for our kids. I mean, most everybody wants that for the kids. And so it is hard for me even now to be like, you know, allow him to make decisions and lead for the family because I didn't know any better. Surrounding myself with people who do follow the Lord and have been in that season more than we have has been exceptional for our marriage because for both of us, really, because we see like an example that we didn't get, and that helps us a lot. I mean, there's been several times that, you know, our marriage has been rocky and just not agreeing with each other, or him balancing the business is a lot for him. So it's hard for him to come home and be like, you know, how do I help you? How do I, because, you know, they don't see, when he comes home, he doesn't see that like what I've been dealing with all day, or, you know, how is he supposed to help me? So there, those are the times that it gets hard. But then like, I go straight back to the Lord. I'm like, I need you to help him. I need him to hear you. And because there's only so much that I can say that's not going to disrespect him. We just recently redid our love languages, because after I've had children, like mine have changed. Like it used to be just words of affirmation, and now it's,
Acts of service.
yes, acts of service. Because I'm like, I need you to do things for me now because I'm doing lots of things. We had to redo that because he wasn't seeing those things. And so when I did that, because the Lord was like, Amanda, you have to tell him, he has to get to know you again, because I'm different now, and so is he, because he's running, you know, this big business, and I now have 5 children that I have to. So I am a different person. So like I always go back to praying about it, and I'm like, okay, how do I? Because allowing him to lead in those things is still very hard. So you're not alone in that aspect.
I love that you touched on like re-getting to know each other because you said you have known each other since 13
Yeah,
or 14.
I was 13 when I met him.
Okay, so I was like 7 when I met Josh.
Oh,
And I know, and I like had a huge crush on him when we were kids. But so we've known each other, right? And so how would you say there has been a more than one time, or is it just the children that had changed you, or have you changed like more throughout your relationship?
I think it's both. Um, I think I've changed throughout my relationship or our marriage, mainly because like we did start going to church, and I did start realizing that not that I wasn't a horrible person, but like the decisions that I would make, like going to church helped me change the decisions and some of the things that I would make. And so I changed as a person as my relationship with the Lord got stronger. But also my kids changed me, because I mean, I basically have grown up with them. I mean, I'm 33. And so, I've had to grow up with them as I'm raising them, and figure out like, how do I make these tiny people be good people for and disciples for the world? And I still struggle there, because I'm like, there are times that I feel like I'm still failing them, but the Lord continues to guide me, because they're homeschooled. I said that there's mornings I wake up and I'm like, I'm not equipped to do this. I am going to fail them here. And every year the Lord's like, nope, this is what I want for them. This is what you're going to do. And I'm like, okay, like, we're going to keep trying this. So, yeah.
So how do you keep listening to the Lord? Like what does that look like for you?
Honestly, because in the very beginning, there's so many times that I asked the people that I was around that had talked about hearing him. And I know in the beginning, I was like, how do you hear him? What is that? Like, what does that mean? Because in my head, I'm like, it's really hard to explain, but you feel that it's right. And because there's times I'm like, how do I know that this is not just my brain being like, yeah, this is what you're supposed to do, we're going for it? Or and really it could still be that, but I have this peace that I feel that is not, like, I can't explain it. And so there are times that I'm like, I still question if I'm hearing him, and there are times that I don't, and I'm like, why are you not like why? Like I need something, but there's a time that you just have to sit and you have to wait and you have on his time because it's like none of the decisions that we've made like going into this I felt were the right ones. And so like just there's things every day that show me that he's been there in those answers when I felt like I was listening to him or that he was speaking to me. So
No, you explained that very well because that's the feeling that I have too. I'm like, is this my crazy brain that's telling me this? Hopefully, if anybody's listening and they're kind of like in the same predicament, they're like, okay, yep, that
mhm,
makes sense. I
yeah,
got it.
hopefully.
I was actually just listening to a podcast where they were talking about when God goes silent on you, when
Mhm,
you're praying and you're not hearing anything, and kind of like what to do during that time.
mhm,
Um, I'll have to send that to you. I had started listening to it, but then I ended up getting a phone call, so I wasn't able to finish it. But I was like, this is perfect,
mhm.
perfect timing. So I'll send that to you. So how would you say that like faith influences how you guys run your business?
So Justin and our personalities are way different. Justin's like fly by the seat of his pants type of person personality. And I'm like, I need a plan. I'm always like, okay, like what are we doing next? Like what do we need to implement? What plan do we need? Because I need to know I like control. If I don't have control, it makes me anxious. And I will use my faith, like I said before, in knowing that like he's going to make the best decision for us. And if he doesn't, the Lord will fix it. And so I kind of just, that's how I do. I like, I'll pray about it. Um, when he talks to me about different things that he wants to change, my human self will roll my eyes and I'm like, okay, like we're this you think this is great or I mean there are times that I'm like that's a bad idea like that's not a good idea and so
Yeah.
Justin will say I do that to every one of his ideas but that's not true and so I just know that the Lord's there and he will fix it as long as we continue to as long as we continue to lean into him and know that he's going to take care of us.
So is there any specific values that you guys try to lean on with the business and when you're trying to like hire people? Like is faith important during that process?
It is I mean, it is, but we also know that like everybody is in different walks of their life. And so we're not going to shy away from talking about it if we hire somebody. But it's not like we're not making that the forefront of like finding out what faith they are or whatever. Because the way that I've seen in bringing somebody to the Lord if they're struggling with something and or they don't know him that just talking about it and them seeing your life and how it progresses or whatever could eventually like bring them there. And so we don't have it part of the hiring process. We will say, things or I don't do the interviews, but they will say sometimes things in the interview process to kind of just gauge where people are.
Mhm.
I would like more of that, but I mean, Chick-fil-A doesn't. They do a great job. so, um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think just being able to speak to somebody through about Jesus through um, their hard times will eventually like lead them there if that's where if it's their time for the Lord to like really lean into them. So
I agree. Because I remember seeing, what was it? Kathy Nicole from Speedy Scoops. She had posted it into the group because she grew up, with faith, and she was curious if anybody else like made it a part of their business because it is something that's very important to her. And that, when she said that, it kind of got me thinking, because when I first did my original like round of hires, like, man, if you show up, I don't care, I will work you, just show up. But now, kind of going through people, learning about people, listening to people, and just seeing how, some people live their life and the things that they do and actions that they do in their everyday life that impacts the business, how they show up with the
Mhm.
business. It kind of made me have a mind shift change. So with this round of hiring, not that, like you said, it's not like it's an actual like, do you go to church? If you don't go
Right.
to church, if you don't read your Bible, I'm not going to hire you. But I have started making reference to church and different things just to see how they react to it. Because
Mhm.
I want somebody that has some core values that are aligned with us. So we're able to move forward because as a leader, I want to be able to like help people, and I want to be able to help lead because that's how I'm going to be able to grow from. That's how what I've gathered from the interview with Justin, like focusing on the people. Because I've been trying to figure out, I'm like, why can't I grow this company? I haven't been able to grow this company because I have not been able to grow people.
Mhm.
That's literally, I know that's what my issue is. And that's what the Lord's been telling me. You need to focus on the people. Quit being so selfish and really pour into people. Get out of your podcast studio, get out of your own head.
No, I think the podcast helps you because you hear and you see the things that everybody else has that goes deep into outside of a social media post. And so I think what you're doing is amazing, and I think it has. I've seen a growth in you just with this, and confidence, and knowing that you can do all these things, even though in the behind the scenes, I don't see the behind the scenes, but I know it's hard, and I think you're doing a great job. But yeah, pouring into them, like I said, the empathy side of it is like, if like they have bad days too, and we have to remember if they mess up, like, to have grace and guide them and just encourage them to fix it. And if they're having a hard time, to let us know. One of our employees called yesterday, or text him, was like, hey, can one of you call me, some like just all things unraveled after shift or whatever. And so it was nice knowing that, like, on the personal level, that they could call and talk to us and kind of walk us through that they're having a hard time, because, like, the everyday life outside of work affects your work, and if you're not pouring into them and supporting them, like, they're not going to want to do the things for you when they get to work. They're not going to care to scoop every day, and especially like in the heat that we have, it's just like, I can easily see how they get out there and they're running around and they're like, if my boss doesn't care for me or appreciate me, I what am I doing? Like, mentally, like, it's not going to hold them.
So what kind of stuff are you guys doing to really pour into your people?
Justin will, every now and then, he'll reward them with like small bonuses, or we have Microsoft Teams. So in like one specific thing for announcements, and so some of the guys will, you know, say, "Oh, it's really hot today," and so I'll jump on there and kind of just be like, give advice on different things, and then, or they'll end their day and I'll be like, we really appreciate you. And, just like the words of affirmation that they may need to hear, that they're doing a great job. We're trying to implement weekly or monthly meetings. I think those are important. Jess and I have been back and forth on that, just so they can, like, be included on the things that we're trying to work through and on, because if they think they're just an employee that makes the business money, like, for me and my thought process, I would hate that. I want to know that I am an important part of the way that this works, because they are, like, they're what keeps this going, regardless of what Justin and I do on the behind the scenes, or any of, the behind the scenes. Like, if they didn't show up, there's a whole lot of mess that happens. And so they need to know that they're important.
Girl, they are important. This kind of makes me think about, because like my personality is just like just do it. Like that's how I am. I just handle it. I just do it. I don't need anybody to tell me. I don't need anybody to talk me up. I just want to handle my business. And so like that's what I think. That's how I was thinking with other people, which isn't the best mindset. Because like you said, you need to be able to like pour into the people, give them those words of affirmation. And what I started doing is with my newest hires, I actually gave them like a questionnaire just so I could kind of get to know them. Like, how do they want to be communicated for positive and negative feedback? Like, what's their favorite color? Where do they like to eat? Um, what's a long term personal goal or like a long term family goal? So then that way, when I am feeling not my best and I'm like, "Man, I don't wanna do nothing. I just wanna be lazy." I can think about, like, he wants to take his family to this place. What am I gonna do? How am I gonna pour into them? How am I gonna pour into myself to make sure, like, that I can help them contribute to that goal? And when he handed me the paperwork back, he's like, nobody's ever asked me these questions before." I was like, "Okay, we're doing something right here." And he had, like, a smile on his face. He was, like, happy about it, and I'm like, "Okay, yeah, we're turning." Because Josh told me, he's like, "You're gonna turn this around, Erica. I know it. You're turning it around." I'm like, so I was, like, walking around, I'm like, "I'm turning it around. We're doing this. This is gonna be, like, good company again."
I love that, because, like, you don't know. Adam told Justin, as a the personality test, if they're like a D type or a C type. I don't remember what it's called, but I took it, and he was like evaluating mine and Justin's results, and he was like, "You need to let Amanda do this part." So I was just like, it was a good insight to see, like, because, like, the Lord made us all different for a reason. Like, if we were all the same, it would be boring. And so I love the questionnaire, to like really get to know them outside of who they are as an employee, like an employee for the business, because then you have the opportunity to bless them with something that they weren't expecting, like Christmas time, like, oh, here's a week vacation to whatever, like, so I love that.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, what do you remember what your personality type was on the DISC assessment?
I know it was the one that, like,
You definitely have, like, some CS or SC
I
in
think that's
there.
what it was. I think, now that you say that,
Yeah.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, so I'm a DI. The D makes me I'm a nightmare, but the I makes me pleasurable to be around and sociable. And being aware of that, like you said, the personality assessment gives you some insight. It makes me realize, because my husband, he's a CI, and I steamroll him. I barrel right over him because he doesn't make decisions quick enough for me. And I'm like, nope, we gotta move and groove, like we gotta go. And so that is where the Lord has really helped me to like slow it down.
Mhm.
He's Josh is gonna answer you. It's just gonna take a little bit of time because he's being thoughtful. Because 'Cause I'm like, "Let's do it, figure it out, and if it's a mess, that's alright, we'll fix it."
It's so funny, because the way you're describing that is you and Justin have maybe that's just the entrepreneur, like, the mind that, like, I don't, I see it now. Like, my mind is getting there, over the years, that I've been able to, like, think the way he does, because I've been seeing him process through it. But both of your personalities sound the same, because Justin's like, fly by the seat of his pants. Let's get this done. I'm changing this, and I'm like, hold on, like, hold on. Let's think through this.
Yeah, but we have to have the balance, and I think that's with marriage, that's why they say, like, opposites attract.
Yeah,
I always joke around and say, like, I'm the balloon that's, like, flopping in the wind with the string, and Josh is holding the string to make sure I don't, like, disappear,
I love
which
that.
is, It's so important, and, like, obviously, people's personality changes, like we talked about how, like, as you grow, um, when you became a mom, and then when you started walking with the Lord, like all these changes happen. But being intentional, and I really want to go back to where you said that you two needed to relearn each other. I love that you took the time to do that, because I think a lot of couples, they don't want to be intentional about it. And it's like, you've changed. Of course, I've changed. It's been 2 decades.
Yeah. I think that Justin and I are back in that phase of relearning each other, because we are in new seasons. We have an operations manager now that is doing some of the things that he has, and so he's having to. There's a new realm of business that we're in that we're trying to figure out, which means that takes more time away from me and at home, and so being really intentional about date nights and talking, and we are not good at that. And so both of us we have a personality where we will get into an argument and we're like, the next day we're like, nah, we're fine. Don't have to talk about it. But the times that we do, it's super helpful because then he can see the like in this season and year after year that I need something different than what I needed before. Like the love languages, like that changed, and I think his may always be the same, but redoing that was helpful because then he could see, okay, now I need to switch on how I pour into you and how I can help you when you need it the most. Because trying to be okay with the things that he still has to do in the business, knowing that end goal that we were going for is hard. So,
Yeah, I think men are always what is it, a physical touch. My
yeah.
husband's been a physical touch the whole time we've been together. No, I like that. So when you were talking about like the new phase of business, you guys have an operations manager. Can we kind of like, will you touch on that a little bit? Like, what does that look like in the business?
Yeah, so he was an employee first, and but he came into the hiring. He had been a manager for other things before, and so he when before we hired him, he was like, I think he was like, this is where the Lord's telling me I need to be. He was like, but I'm not going to be in this position for long. I want to be higher. Like I don't want to be scooping crap all day, is because that's just not what he wanted. So like when we hired him, we knew that, and he once we got to the point where we could transition him into operations manager, it was a need at that point because Justin couldn't manage all of it by himself, and so we hired somebody to take his position in the field, and so now he handles the employees. Like if something's going wrong, if like they have to call and figure out something, he handles that side. He handles checking invoices in the morning if they failed. He also, if somebody calls in sick, he takes over for that route that day. So he's like the backup, I guess, too. And he will, if our my mother in law answers the phones for most things. They kind of go back and forth doing it. So if there's like a complaint or something, she'll transfer and he'll handle the complaints or whatever. So they kind of work together in that. So he'll make new accounts or he'll call if a commercial thing comes in the email, he'll call them to try to set up a meeting or kind of get more information from them. So in that aspect, it's really great because Justin's not a phone person.
I get it. I get it. So with the operations manager taking a lot of that like mental load, really, and physical load off of Justin, What does that free him up to do?
He's home a lot more because before, I mean, he was home, but he wasn't home. Like his mind was,
Wasn't home.
yeah, he was not home. And so it frees up for him to, help around the house or, do things with the kids or we're still in the, I think, learning phases of having an operations manager. So he still has a lot that he has to do, but mentally it offloaded him and that was really hard for him because he's like, I don't know that I can let this part go. He's like, what if something messes up? What if whatever? And I'm like, this is what you have to do to grow, because if you don't, like, it's not going to work in that, and really, like, potentially our marriage, because you know you have two things that now you have to manage, and if you're pouring all of it into one side, you're not pouring the other half, and so it offloaded mentally, I think, for him a lot.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you spoke on that and really pushing through that uncomfortableness because I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't and they stay stuck because they're afraid that, everything's going to fall apart, but they're not paying attention to what's falling apart slowly on the other side, either like their physical health, their relationships with their partner or their kids. Because like how many entrepreneur stories have we heard about men that are uber successful, but they're on their like second or third marriage
Yeah.
because their other ones fell apart.
Hmm. Yeah, and that has been one of my big fears in this, is because it's new, and it's not something that he or I have ever had to, like, grow through or work through, and so finding the balance between that is still hard. But like when we do and it works really well, like it, and it's just about having grace too, which I have a really hard time with. But like when you're talking about health, like I don't like going to the doctor, and I just, because I've balanced so much for so long, there I let a lot of that build a little resentment towards the business, and so, which is, can be really, I mean, it's really easy to do because of how much I've had to balance and do that. But so I finally was like, I need to do something health wise for me. For you, that was, I feel like, giving up alcohol, because that, like, you grow in that. So I actually have a doctor's appointment tomorrow to do something to, because I was like, I need to do something knowing that this is a heavy anxiety load for me. And I need to do something so that I can be a better wife. I can be a better mom. I can be better for really myself, because if I'm not my best self, then I'm not going to be my best self for anybody else. And so the health aspect is very, very important, mentally and physically, in doing this. And if you're not taking care of yourself, nobody's going to be taken care of.
No, it's totally true. And I think it just, yeah, you get so busy and then you start taking care of everybody else. Um, I really think that obviously our faith really helps us focus on our marriage because I think a lot of people take marriage for granted, that it's just, oh, it's just a piece of paper, it's just tax stuff. And that's kind of like, it's a little bit like how I felt for a while. Like, I would get resentful towards Josh or even like arrogant. And I would literally tell him, like, I want you. I don't need you. So if you mess up, bye. Like that's literally how my attitude was. And it's God's grace that this man stayed with me. He said he's seen the potential. He was just hoping that the Erica that he met was going to show up again. And when I decided that was March 27th or whatever day it was that I wanted to stop drinking because I was just like literally disgusted with the person that I had become, just my attitude, just all of it all around. And I was in a Chick-fil-A eating the Lord's fries, just sitting there, just like thinking about it. And I was like, I'm gonna lose my marriage. Like this man's gonna leave me. And I'm like, I do need him. Like in all the sense, like he is my person. It's not just a want. And so like that day was, I was like, all right, I need to start making the change. And at that point, like I didn't really know how to pray. I didn't quite understand it. I was just kind of like on the low praying a little bit, but like I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing this right or if you're hearing me. And then when my cousin took his own life and we were at the funeral, I was walking by the pastor because he I would see him at every funeral because like he's been our pastor for every funeral that our family has had. And I kept walking by him and I would just, just smile like hi. And then I started asking questions and then I started asking more questions. And then we just started chatting more. And I was like, I'll see you next Sunday. Like I'm gonna go to church. And I just remember that Sunday, it was like it was weird. Like I had never wanted to do something so bad. Like I had all the energy, I had all the want, I had all the anxieties, like, but I was still like, I don't want to go, but I want to go. And I went, I sat there and I probably went for like a good like 6 to 8 weeks by myself until Josh eventually started going with me. And now he's been right there by my side. And now like with our marriage, like I think about it. I think about like if I do this, how is this going to impact my marriage? And before, like, I don't know where I was going with that, but faith really allows you to like stop and think like how is this going to improve the marriage or not improve it? What's the decision
In
here?
your marriage or really in the business, like you have to think, because I think for you and Justin, because you both have been in the field, for Josh and I, like we don't see or deal with the things or think of the things that you guys do. And so for like mentally, you have to share in the decision you make because
Mhm.
ultimately it's the decision you make is going to affect both of you. I think it's really hard, uh, like earlier when you said that like entrepreneurs don't have spouses and stuff that support them because it doesn't like their brain isn't processing it the same way. And that was my struggle. I was just like, what if we can't feed our kids? What are we going to do? Like that side of it. And so the faith part, but like I said, like the decision that you make for yourself is going to impact the decision or the things going forward with both of you in your marriage because it's very easy to be the selfish side of you to make a decision and not think about how it's going to affect everybody else. But and I think it's really important in terms of the business to really like think outwardly of your inner circle for everybody else before you make a decision because yeah.
Yeah, because you just felt like making the decision that day. And I think with like even yesterday, I had moved some stuff over and I didn't communicate it with my scooper. I didn't communicate it with the admin team, nor did I communicate with the customers. And I was like, why did I do that? Like, why didn't I have a conversation with anybody to let anybody know what was going on? So I literally had to go through and I apologized to everybody. I was like, I made a decision to move all the Saturday houses back to Wednesday because the schedule's running smoothly now that Charles is on board, and I'm sorry that I didn't put you guys in the loop. Like this is my fault. And so I did. I went through it. I had to take ownership to everybody and spend a nice chunk of time just apologizing. Which was the right move. It wasn't because sometimes some business owners were like, I made the decision, deal with it. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Making mistakes is really, really good for your growth. And so you could make a decision on the fly and then realize, yeah, that was a bad idea. But then you grow and see like where you have to like next time you think back on, oh, that I did that last time, that wasn't a good idea. And so you grow in that. And so I think even making decisions, if it's on the fly and you don't wait to feel like it's the right thing, like you learn from that. And so there's so many things that we've done in the business that it was a horrible idea, but now we're better. And so I think it's going to continue to be that way, even in marriage and business and life. And so, I mean, you just roll with it.
You learn. So what are you looking forward to? Let's talk about like let's say like life. Like what's a goal that you and Justin have in say like the next 5 years or so?
So my oldest he's in ninth grade this going into ninth grade. So he'll be graduated, which really makes me sad. Uh,
Girl, it's crazy. It's crazy to have, like, be parenting an adult child.
oh, um, I we will still be in the growing kid era, but Justin can look towards future stuff. I'm in the now mostly. But I'm looking forward to where he feels more at peace with like letting more of it go, so that we can travel more. We can, like, he can come and help with school stuff, or where we get to be with the kids more. And so I am personally looking forward to that. And I know that he is too, because he wants our operations manager to feel even more important, and our operations manager's on the same page. He's like, I want this for the business. I want this and this and this and this. Like, I want this. These are our goals. And so I think that's what I'm looking forward to, getting to know. Like, this was really nerve wracking for me, but I actually really enjoy it because um, I was telling Justin and I told Mike, I was like, I don't know why she asked me. Like, I don't know what I could even like put forth for this. Like, I'm not in the same realm as all the other people who have been on the podcast. Like, I'm just a mom that admins like different things. And so it's nice to be included in that. And know that like I'm a big part of like the goals that we have going forward. So
You are. I think the spouses of the business owner are like, what is it? Unsung heroes. You know, you guys are in, seriously, you guys are in the background, but you are the ones that are providing like the stability and the
mm,
peace and the calm to our chaos. And
mm,
without you, like, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. Like, I couldn't do what I'm doing without my husband because he's the one that creates that peace for me because
mm,
everything is so chaotic. And I'm sure you're the exact same way for Justin. And you are, girl, you are so, so important. And I've been following you on social media for quite some time. And I just adore you through, through Facebook and stuff like that. So I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
yeah, thanks for having me. Justin says the same thing. He's like, I could not have built what we have now without you. And it's hard to see that on the back end, especially, because I'm in a different realm of him. And so it is hard for spouses to see that, like, having giving that support is a huge part of it. And so uh, hopefully, others can see and know that they're appreciated in that area.
Yeah. Yeah, and to understand, like, how important it is. So if
Mhm.
they have I don't know, if they're the supportive, you know, they play the supportive role in the business that it truly is important and they need just they keep going. Just keep on going because we wouldn't be able to do it without them.
I just got an image, and it's probably the Lord, but he's just like I see the spouse being like the tree stump to like the tree stump to a tree, because like all the branches of a business go off of that. And so like Justin or the spouse as one is like the tree stump or a tree stem to all the branches that come off. And that's what a business is. Like I'm kind of shocked right now that I even just have that analogy, but that's what it makes me think, is like the business owner and the spouse like is a tree, like the tree stump. I don't
That's funny you thought of that because that's what my husband does. He does tree work.
yeah, exactly. That, yeah.
He is
Wow.
a tree. And for those business owners that are listening that have a supportive spouse, don't steamroll them.
Mhm.
Be intentional. Love on them. Let them know that they are appreciated and share the wins, share the little things because I know from personally, like I can just just beat Josh up, and he just takes it until he doesn't take it, and then we have this huge blowout, and I'm like, "I had no idea that you even felt that way." One, because I wasn't paying attention and I was so, like, absorbed in my own stuff. So it's really important for us to be intentional
Yeah,
and
it's
nurture those neighbors.
yeah, like for me, even just like sharing the business side, like Justin sharing the business side, it is helpful because I know what he's like walking through. But then you have to remember, for him, he like, or the entrepreneur side, like if they're in the business, like you have to remember that like they have stuff going on too. So like being intentional with asking them, like, how are you doing? Like, what do we need to rebalance? What do we need to? So it's a back and forth, like really pouring into each other because you might be handling all these things on this side of the business, but like your spouse is handling a lot too, and so you have to remember to pour into both of those things because it's what's gonna hold it up in the business and in general.
Yeah, there's so many good lessons and so many good nuggets in this conversation. I love it. I feel like I could keep you on forever, but I know you're a busy mom, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna wrap this up. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, how could they get in touch with you? What's your preferred method of communication?
I mean, I'm on Facebook. You could just find me there. It's probably the easiest.
I can include the link if you want to send it to me later. All right. Well, thank you so much. Here's another episode of the Scoop podcast, you guys. I do try to drop a new podcast every single Monday. If you have not left me a Apple review, could you do that, please? I hear that it really, really helps the algorithm, and hopefully it will push this content out to the people that need it and want to hear it, and we can get to the right people. So until next time, you guys, thank you. Bye.